Hi, it is my pleasure to be with you here today. I understand we're running a little bit late, and on behalf of the panel and myself, we are going to try to get through our questions and our presentations so we're back on schedule because we know how important lunch is. All right. Welcome, and for those of you that are newly elected officials, I've met several of you, and for those that I haven't, again, my name's Rose Martinez. I direct the Association for our Texas Trustees, our Community College Association of Texas Trustees. It is a mouthful, CAT. So I know you've heard the term CAT from Dr. Hellier and Betty McCrone, Dr. McCrone. We are absolutely thrilled to be a part of the conference. We work lockstep with TAC, our CEOs that represent the 50 community colleges that you govern. And why is that important? That is important because our policy message is one and the same. And you heard that earlier today, and those policy priorities you received on that blue sheet are really what we're going forward with our 86th legislative session moving forward. What I'd like to say is just to give a plug to CAT. I got through half of this row or half of this section here. We have our annual conference every year, and it is our major way of working with our members and saying welcome, providing you with professional development, providing you with information of great things happening in and around the state as well as nationally. This is your conference, so by all means, please take a look and listen. I have some extra save the date cards up here. It'll be held June 14th and 15th here in Austin at, I just lost my, at the Westin in the Domain, which is a little bit up north. Great shopping, but also great content for you that really aspire to learn more and be the best you can be in your position. So with that, we are at the tail end of this mid-morning. Our public community colleges, we know, are very complex organizations, and their budgets, financial reports, and accounting rules can be daunting. You've heard a lot about the funding processes, the papers that you're going to be looking at in terms of the reports and the financial pieces, the audits, those sorts of things. This particular session is really about you asking our esteemed panel questions. I know you've been patiently listening and having opportunities to have a question here and there, but we have no PowerPoint, so this is all about really communicating. And last year we did the same thing with Dr. Shelton, who is here today, and James Henry Russell, and we thought it worked very well. So if you have a question, no question is a dumb question, as I like to tell my students. You're in the same process here. This is a safe community. We want you to learn as much as you can going forward because your expertise, your insights will only help generate a more successful college, and that is what we're here to do. We know as trustees, you're in an enviable position. You represent one of roughly 400 trustees in the state, and so we are a big group. Your collective service will help set the course to student success. In your role, you have a vested interest and opportunity to improve and accelerate the post-secondary attainment of over 750,000 students. Realize that universities are next door, meaning your colleges represent the largest proportion of higher education students in Texas. So what you all do matters, and it matters greatly for your community and for this state. We invite your participation, as I've said before, in the allotted times that we have. We'll have a couple of questions that we've all discussed earlier, and then we'll open it up for questions, and then we'll end with a couple of key points that we feel like are important to mention before we leave today. So with that, let me introduce my panel. We have Dr. Pamela Anglin. She is president of Parrish Junior College. Dr. Anglin has served as president of Parrish Junior College since 2003. Prior to becoming the president there, she was the executive vice president and chief financial officer at Grayson County College and CFO also of Blinn College. She is a certified public accountant and has taught accounting prior to becoming an administrator. President Anglin has served on the American Association of Community Colleges Board of Directors and has served 2 terms on the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools Commission on Colleges Board of Trustees. Her education includes an Associate of Science from Grayson County College, a BBA from TAMU, an MBA from Texas Christian University, and her ED from Baylor University. Please welcome Dr. Angling. Our second panelist is not a president, but equally esteemed, and he is our legal counsel from Del Mar College. Augustine, as he likes to be called, Augie Rivera Jr., serves as general counsel for Del Mar College, located in Corpus Christi, Texas. He is part of the president's executive team. He joined Del Mar administration in 2015 after more than 27 years of private practice in civil trial and appellate law. He is a native of Driscoll, Texas. Mr. Rivera is a graduate of Yale University and Stanford Law School and was admitted to the Texas Bar in 1988. Mr. Rivera has been professionally recognized at the local, state, and national levels. In 2008, the Corpus Christi Bar Association honored Mr. Rivera with the Judge Paul W. Nye Professionalism Award, which recognizes lawyers exemplifying high ethical standards. In 2011, the Texas Supreme Court appointed Mr. Rivera to serve on the Texas Board of Law Examiners, which is a judicial agency responsible for determining that applicants seeking to be licensed to practice law in Texas meet the qualifications established by the court. He was recently elected to the Board of Directors of the National Conference of Bar Examiners, which develops and administers bar testing materials used nationwide. He's a frequent speaker on ethics. He and his wife, the Honorable Juliana Siracusa Rivera, have 4 children. Carolina, who is also a Yale grad, I'm sure he's very proud of that. Miguel is at TSU, and Pablo, a sophomore at UT, go Horns. Jorge, a 9th grader at WB Ray. I'm from Corpus Christi, so Texans. And he's also a dad and brother and sister to golden retrievers, Hubert and Khaleesi. Okay, so he's a busy man. Please welcome Mr. Rivera as well. Okay, we are going to go ahead and get started. This first question I'm going to ask of Mr. Rivera, and it goes as follows. And this is what happens when you use technology and your eyes are going up. The first question is, let's begin with having Mr. Rivera share the importance of the role of college trustee or regent and his or her key responsibilities. So in that role, what are some of the key responsibilities that you'd like to talk about?
So thank you all for having me. On behalf of Dr. Escamilla, Mark Escamilla, our college president, who couldn't be here for this session, he wanted me to extend his personal apologies, and I hope that I am half the substitute that I should be for this. As Rose mentioned, I'm the general counsel at Del Mar College, and I really wasn't part of the executive team or part of the Del Mar family, the inner family, until just recently. And since then, when I came on board to the executive team, I was probably in the same boat that many of you who are stepping up and taking on the role of regents and trustees were. Really, I'd been their outside counsel for 13 years before that. But there's nothing like getting into it, getting into the kitchen to see how everything is cooked, right? So let me just ask this, can I see a show of hands? How many of you are brand new trustees, brand new regents? Okay, well, welcome. Your job is not easy. It's not easy in this environment, and you've been learning a lot this morning. Somebody said it, I think Regent Sherwood, you talk about the fire hose being turned on. It is, and it will be, and it never stops being that. So the first thing I'm going to tell you is that in my 15 years of representing Del Mar College and having had the privilege of working with many boards and many regents there, I will tell you this, don't be daunted. You're not expected to get everything right away, even after a year or 2 years. I see Dr. Angling, she's seen this more up close and personal than I have. Don't be daunted. The concept of the board continues to be that of a board made up of laypersons. You may be chosen, or you may run, or you may be appointed because you have particular expertise, or you may offer yourself up for service because you have particular expertise. But ultimately, that's not why you're on there. You're one of 9 or 7, and you're working collectively as a unit. Whatever skill sets you have, I mean, we've been very fortunate at Del Mar College. We've had a board chair for some time now, Mr. Trey McCampbell, who comes with an extensive financial background. He's a banker, he's been a CPA, and Regent Ed Bennett, who's one of our recent newly elected board members, is also a CPA. So we've been very fortunate to have that perspective, that expertise on the board. But that doesn't mean that everybody has to be at that level. So that's just the first thing I want to tell you is be calm. It's going to be okay. Be patient because it takes some time to learn. I mean, I'm sitting here this morning still learning as I watched our colleagues from ACC and Alamo talk about this stuff. But what are your job duties and responsibilities? Well, this one's kind of easy. If you've been paying attention this morning, you kind of know what it is already, right? Your job is, I think it starts with strategic planning. We're undergoing strategic planning right now at Del Mar College, and the board is very involved with that. I mean, long workshop where, took Post-it notes and, did the whole interactive thing. That's how it begins. Because your strategic plan ultimately informs what your mission is, and that's what you construct your budget towards every year. Or at least that's the concept. Of course, on a practical basis, what you do every year is you review and approve the budget that the administration, with the leadership of the college president, has put together. You don't get necessarily into the details or the weeds. You've heard a lot about the governance principle of setting policy versus executing on a management basis day to day what you do. And the same thing goes for the budget. But it is your job. You are required annually to review and approve a budget. Then, throughout the year, your duties are to oversee the execution of that budget. So how do you do that? Well, you're going to find, if you're a new trustee, that you get reports at your board meetings. You get an opportunity out there transparently for everybody to ask questions about that. And you get regular reports. You're required to keep up with your investments. We have a professional outside investment advisor who comes and makes quarterly reports, and the board's able to ask questions about that. And that's how you keep track of that. If you happen to be blessed like Del Mar College is, and you have a number of very active capital improvement programs, big construction programs, then that's a whole nother thing that you keep track of during the year. You get regular reports on that, where the dollars are being spent. And so that's your general responsibility for oversight. As I was trying to figure out what to say, I realized that you have a whole session this afternoon on legal duties and responsibilities, where other lawyers, colleagues of mine that I know, are going to get up and talk to you about that. So I don't want to stray too far into that. But a couple of other things that you might not think go into financial management, but I personally think that they do. And that is, I think that every one of you, as well as collectively the board that you serve on, should demonstrate a commitment to ethics. And so that's something that I do speak about, and just recently spoke at the ACCT conference in New York, and participated in a pre-Congress Academy on board governance and ethics. And you might not think that it really fits, but it really kind of does. And at Del Mar College back in 2012, we reviewed our ethics policy, our board bylaws, and decided to do a couple of things going forward that would demonstrate a commitment to ethics. And so once a year, I do an ethics update. And in consulting with Regent Sherwood, our newest regent, we're going to probably talk about financial ethics and financial management and focus on that. But I give an annual ethics update, which we do in open session. And afterwards, every regent reaffirms their commitment to ethics by signing a little code of ethics that we have. That I'm sure all of you have bylaws that cover, your conduct and how you act as a unit, and how you're ambassadors of the college to the community. But I think that if you start from that premise, that you are first of all, you're personally committed to ethics, and then as a group you're committed to ethics. Then that's the context that you go ahead and grapple with the bigger financial things that you're going to be dealing with. So I wanted to put a little plug in for that, but I did want to point out that, and this is in your packet, that under the Texas Education Code, You have the legal responsibility. This is under section 51.352, and again, it'll be covered this afternoon. You have the legal responsibility of a fiduciary in the management of funds under the control of institutions subject to the board's control and management. So, fiduciary. So every one of you that's a trustee, an existing trustee or a new trustee, you've taken an oath. And that actually means something. That means you're accepting the responsibility to be informed about your decisions, to try to make the right decision, balancing, all sorts of things and doing what you need to do in the best interest of the college. And it means giving it your best effort. So I'll finish up with this. Your best effort, again, as I said at the beginning, nobody expects you to become a CPA or to become, an investment, expert. You've got hired folks, retained folks that are going to help you with that. But you are expected to do your homework. And in doing your homework, that means that there may be some need for you to do, offline work. Dr. Escamilla has always been very good about making his regents aware of the opportunity to come meet with our CFO. Let's sit down and let's talk about it. If you have any questions, don't wait until the board meeting and ask. Come on, come on over. We'll take the time to help you with that. Now, you don't want to abuse that prerogative or that privilege, but please do take advantage of it. And I think, like as Rose said, number one rule is there's no question that's too dumb or no question that's too simple when you're doing it. So those are my general thoughts about the duties and responsibilities that you guys have in the context of financial management.
Thank you. That was really thorough. The next question is directed to Dr. Anglin. Can you talk a little bit about 2 to 3 core competencies for an effective community college trustee? And as we talked about earlier, I encourage you to provide examples of how you've seen the importance of these competencies play out during your tenure as president.
As Augie just said, the number one responsibility is that fiduciary responsibility. And in these times, we have more financial challenges in the community college than we probably have in our history. And as higher ed is changing, those challenges are growing even more. So as you saw this morning, as you go in as a new trustee, understanding, learning what that revenue mix is for your particular institution, learning what your service area is, learning the difference between taxing district and service area, because all of that factors in, and we are all so very diverse. What is the revenue mix at one community college is very different, and you saw 4 examples this morning. But as you move forward in your decisions, understanding how that affects your college is very important. Also, something that the last 10 years, we've all been more data focused than we've ever been before. And in your college, make sure you understand those student achievement targets that have been set, the success goals for students, because those actually, they have an impact on your revenue and they have an impact on your expenses. So have a routine data check to where you have those goals and you can see the progression or lack thereof every year, the challenges, understand the challenges that administration is facing, but also in other key performance indicators for the college. Have those set to where you know them up front and at least once a year look at where the college is on its student achievement targets and on its key performance indicators. You'll hear a session after this on the financial condition analysis that comes out of the coordinating board each year. That gives you an opportunity to look at your ratios compared to other colleges. One thing that we always do, we look at our progress, our college, but we also look at where we fit with a group of peer institutions that we've established. So that gives you some good ways to monitor each year. But those key core responsibilities, understanding the revenue mix, asking questions, just as Augie said. And back when I was a CFO and a board that at the college I was employed by, we had one board member that was very in tune to the financial aspects of the college. And he could take up an hour in a board meeting asking financial questions. And so we got into a routine. The president would just have him come sit down with me if he had any questions that he knew maybe he didn't want to ask in public in front of the news media. It was better to come ask beforehand and find out before he asked in public. And there were times when he said, now I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to ask this in public because our taxpayers need to hear it. But it was a good dialogue, and it helped the whole board by doing that deeper dive prior to doing it in a public forum.
Thank you. So we talked about roles and competencies. I wanted to actually skip down just strategic planning and decision making. What questions are key for trustees to ask when making informed and long-term decisions regarding investments? Who would like to take a shot at that? Okay.
As part of your responsibilities, you're going to see your investment policy at least once a year to make sure that it's in accordance with the public funds investment policy. But you're going to see that at least once a year. You're also going to approve that policy, but you're going to approve your authorized brokers and dealers for the college, where the investments can be made. And then you're going to, in most cases, see an investment report at least once a month, possibly once a quarter instead of once a month. But you're going to see that, and that's an opportunity for you to ask questions, make sure that the investments are looking long-term to meet the cash flow needs of the college. And if you have those capital projects that you're saving for, you can monitor those investments along the way.
Just to add, obviously another key question, you may do this personally, but it's the same for what you're doing as a trustee for your college. And be very direct in asking about risk. What is the risk here? What's the risk to this portfolio? Explain it to me. Give it to me in detail. And as Dr. Anglin said, you've got different considerations wearing your hat as a trustee than you do as an individual. You might be, you may say, hey, okay, throw caution to the wind. I don't care what the risk is. I think there's a big payoff. Well, you can't necessarily do that because again, fiduciary comes from fidere, the Latin word for to trust. And so you've been entrusted with being a steward and caretaker for the financial well-being of this college that you're now serving. So you might have, figure out what your personality is. If you're risk averse, you just need to be careful and be very specific about those questions. What are we looking at, and what do you expect with market trends and all that?
On the investments, two things to just know that there are other people looking at it. Your independent auditors do a review of your compliance with the Public Funds Investment Act every year. The other thing is the state auditor's office. They're looking to make sure we're meeting all of those requirements too. And the state auditors put out a report every year on all of the institutions and whether they're in compliance or not.
Thank you. So we talked a little bit about risk management in that situation as well. I'm going to ask one more question, then I want to open it up to the audience, and that is, how should the trustee balance their allegiance to taxpayers versus the college versus students?
As a board member, you are there to interpret the community to the college, but also interpret the college to the community. And I think when you ask yourselves two questions and you understand the people you represent, but you also understand the college, two questions: what's best for students? What's best for the college? within the parameters we have to operate in. And usually when you do that, with coupling it with that understanding of the people you represent, you're going to make a good decision for the institution.
Thank you. I'd like to open it up for questions at this time. Anyone? Don't be shy. Shy. Yes, sir.
Let me say this just as a footnote to what Dr. Anglin just said. I mean, this is something that, frankly, is a balancing act for every one of you in terms of who do you represent? Do you represent the college? Do you represent the students? You represent all of them. You represent all of those interests. You have duties to your students, duties to your employees, duties to the institution. You have a responsibility to the public. All of that is in the mix. But I want to stress this, and I think it's in one of the AGB papers that you've got, and that is, in the midst of all of these duties, never forget that you're also independent. You have an independent responsibility as a trustee to do the right thing based on your best analysis of the situation. And you've got to remain independent. And I get it. Look, you're all elected. I understand that, okay? And you've got to go out and run elections and run campaigns, some of you more than others. I mean, I get that we're a big state and things are different in different places. But despite that, I mean, I remember one time having a conversation with the regent who said, well, I'm beholden to my constituents. And it's just, what does that mean, right? I mean, well, to the voters who voted, well, no, not exactly. Not when you take an oath to do something grander than that. So remember the oath, remember that you are independent and exercise that independence, and do the right thing.
Thank you. If no one has another question, I actually had one that was talking about student success points. And we'd heard about student success points in the two prior conversations. So we've talked about student success in this conference. With performance-based funding and other initiatives, how does the impact on budgeting and planning, how is that affected? And what do trustees need to know when examining and utilizing these student success funds?
We've all been focused on student success, and there's so many things that we can do to improve student success, but with limited budgets, we're having to look at what can we get the biggest return on our investment as we move to more student success coaches or advisors, as we buy software to help communicate with students better, as we contract with companies to help us with phone apps to communicate. All of these are trade-offs. And what we've learned is we have to monitor and we look at how they're performing. And every year in budget time, we're ending up reallocating dollars. If it's not doing what we thought it would do, then we shift those dollars into something that would improve student success more. One thing that we've realized, as you work to increase your graduation rates, as we move to make sure students are finishing 15 hours in that first semester, 30 hours in the year, graduating with 60 hours, reducing the number of hours that they graduate with, that impacts you. It impacts you in tuition revenue and in contact hour generation. But it is the right thing for students. And so that's with the student success there, it has impacted revenue for us, but it is the right thing for students. We've put in a lot of student success initiatives. We've had to reallocate dollars. But our graduation rate went from 19% IPEDS rate in 2013 to 33% in 16 because of those, but it has impacted us. So the success points are very important because at least that gives us a reward for being doing the right thing for students.
Thank you. I'm going to end it with this question because I think it's really important. So given your advantage as a college president or legal counsel, if the tables were turned and you were a trustee who was meeting with your college president for the first time, what would be the number one question to ask that we haven't addressed today, and why?
If I were the trustee?
I think I stumped him.
Yeah, that would be fun. No, I think my first question would be, how can I help? How can I best help? I mean, I'm excited. I want to help. So where can I plug in and help me get there?
That was, as I thought about that question, that was the exact answer that I had. How can I help?
Are there any questions from the floor? Just want to make sure. Yes, sir.
On student success point, that is growing, the number of dollars. How do we make sure that we're not grading to success? That professors have pressure on them to make sure their students succeed, and maybe a little more lenient in their grades, so they will get better.
Great question.
I can tell you that the first thought when our faculty, and probably across the state, when they heard we were moving into performance-based funding, that was the first thing they said, you're going to try to make us give grades. And so it was, no, we're not, but we are going to expect you to engage students more. We're going to put things in place to help support the students get through. It's not about changing your standards at all, but it's about finding ways to help those students get over those obstacles. But that is the first concern when any state starts talking about performance-based funding.
And I would offer that the balance to that is we need to make sure that we've got metrics on that. How did you do when you transferred, and how did you do in the successive course? That's the balance. That's the thing we can put in place that's concrete, that will literally prevent that from happening, as opposed to our behavior. We all tell our faculty, don't lower the bar, but we want to make incentives.
Something that we did was we changed the faculty evaluation to add those metrics on the faculty evaluation. And we look at and we benchmarked it at where we were before we went into success points. But every year we look at our institutional completion rates by course and the success rates, ABC. And we do that by institution, by departments, by faculty member. And if a faculty member deviates a certain percentage either direction, then we look at, is this someone that could be inflating grades? Or is it someone that really needs some professional development to improve their connecting with students in the classroom? So that has, I think, helped. It was scary, but it's really helped in saying we're not telling you to give grades because we're benchmarking against these, and so you can be penalized either direction if you're not doing what you should be doing.
Yeah, I've got a comment to that. One thing we did pretty interestingly at the Alamo Community College is we actually have an advisory group of faculty members that comes and addresses the board. They also have a seat when the presidents, the vice chancellors, and the chancellor meet, so that they can hear some of the board decisions that we're making before they actually get cleared, so that they have a time and an opportunity to question and understand. The other thing I think that our former chancellor did very effectively was he actually hired faculty into the administrative level so that they could understand the dilemma that administrators were facing with the state legislature. I think involving faculty at all levels really brings the picture into focus, because then everybody understands what we're trying to do with the students.
Good point. Go ahead.
Yeah, if you're going to, I just had three final takeaways from, in terms of putting it back in context. I think an effective, campus financial management. Number one, do your homework. Number two, don't be afraid to ask. And number three, come to things like this. And this is mostly for you new trustees. I've had an opportunity now to go to state conferences like this, national conferences like this, and there's a lot of information. Every single one of them is always the fire hose turned on, and so you can only do so much in a compressed period of time. But the main thing that I've seen, the really cool thing that I've seen, is that there's an opportunity to interact. You get to meet trustees from other community colleges in Texas. You get to mingle with them, have lunch with them, you get to know them, over time, and you get to ask each other questions. And so I would encourage you to do that as a way of professional development.
Terrific. I would also encourage you to use the resources that we have online within the three groups that we coordinate with. The TAC website, TACC, Texas Association of Community Colleges. If you go to that website, you'll also get connected to the CAT website, CATT, and the Texas Success Center. Those three entities oversee the CEOs, or the TACA CEOs, Texas trustees, and then the Texas Success Center provides professional development for your faculty. Those three alignments are wonderful in that you hit all three areas very well and succinctly. There's a wealth of knowledge in terms of the policy priorities, in terms of professional development, in terms of events that you might want to partake in to learn more, or just to read about. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time. All of us here are welcome to any comments or questions you have after the session, and enjoy the rest of the day and tomorrow. Thank you.